Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from first group, and in this good opportunity, we would like to talk about strength and weakness of quantitative research and qualitative research. Okay, for the first material, I would like to talk about quantitative research. Quantitative research is defined as a systematic investigation of phenomena by gathering quantifiable data and performing statistical computational techniques. An example of quantitative research is the survey conducted to understand the amount of time a doctor takes to tend to a patient when the patient walks into the hospital. A patient satisfaction survey template can be administered to ask questions like how much time did a doctor take to see a patient, how often does a patient walk into a hospital, and other such questions. Uh, Quantitative research has some types. For the first types is descriptive research. Descriptive research seeks to describe the current status of an identified variable. These research projects are designed to provide systematic information about a phenomenon. For example, a description of how second grade students spend their time during summer vacation. For the second type is correlational research. A comparison between two entities is invariable. Correlation research is conducted to establish a relationship between two closely knit entities and how one impacts the other and what are the changes that are eventually observed. And the example, the relationship between stress and depression. And the third type is causal comparative research. This research method mainly depends on the factor of comparison, also called quasi-experimental research. This quantitative research method is used by researchers to conclude the cause-effect equation between two or more variables, where one variable is dependent on the other independent variable. Example, the impact of drugs and on a teenager. And the last type is experimental research. Experimental research, as the name suggests, is usually based on one or more theories. This theory has not been proven in the past and is merely a supposition. In experimental research, an analysis is done around proving or disproving the statement. This research method is used in natural sciences. Traditional research methods are more effective than modern techniques. Okay, for the next material, my friend will explain it.
The next is definition. The next is about qualitative research. The first definition of qualitative research. Yeah, qualitative research is multi-method in focus involving an interpretative, naturalistic approach to its subject matter. This means that qualitative researchers study things in their natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them. Qualitative research involves the study, use, and collection of a variety of empirical materials. Case study, personal experience, introspective life story, interview, observational, historical, interactional, and visual text that describe routine and problematic moments and meanings in individual lives. Um, Qualitative research is commonly used in the humanities and social science, in subjects such as anthropology, sociology, education, health science, history, and others. Um, Qualitative research is used to understand how people experience the world. While there are many approaches to qualitative research, they tend to be flexible and focus on retaining rich meaning when interpreting data. Okay. Then next, common qualitative research approach or the types of qualitative research. The first is narrative research. Narrative research is good for capturing the detailed stories or life experience of one or more individuals, groups, or organizations. Sometimes it's referred to as storytelling. A narrative can be both a method or a phenomenon to be studied. When compared to non-narrative approach, stories are richer and thicker, more compelling, more easily memorable, and give context. They get beyond the parts to give sense to the whole, capture the interaction between individuals, and give access to tacit understanding. In this research, the researcher examine how stories are told to understand how participants perceive and make sense of their experience. This is the conducting narrative research. The first, determine if narrative research is adequate for the research problem or research question. Then decide on ways to collect information from interviews, document, journal, or diary, letters, photos, and videos. Then collect information about the context of the stories. It's maybe jobs, homes, culture, rest, time, and place. Then reorganize the story into a general framework or restory. Establish chronological sequence, linking ideas, identify plot line, establish beginning, middle, and end. Then collaborate with participants, actively involving them in the research and looking for turning points and epiphanies. Okay. The second is phenomenological research. This research aimed at describing a phenomenon and unearthing previously unnoticed or overlooked issue by describing what all participants have in common as they experience a phenomenon. Instead of instead of making inference, it reveals meanings and identifies impacts that appear hidden, such as anger, grief, sense of rejections. It provides rich description that aid understanding. It develops an understanding of a phenomenon through the specific human experience of the phenomenon. It also describes what it means to be a person in a particular world. It is not concerned with casual explanation, but with the human experience. In this research, the researchers investigate a phenomenon or event by describing and interpreting participants' life experience. To conducting a phenomenological research, and the first you must do is determine if phenomenological research is ad- adequate for the research problem or research question. Usually, to understand the common experience of several individuals about a phenomenon in order to develop practice, policies, and or decision making. Then bracket cut as much as possible the preconceptions and experience of the researchers. After that, collect information from individuals who have experienced the phenomenon through in-depth interviews and multiple interviews, but also through observation, documents. Uh, After that, ask two broad questions. One, what have you experienced and what contexts have influenced your experience of the phenomenon? Complete with more information if it's needed. Then, phenomenological data analysis from the answer to the previous question. Then, highlight significant statements. Then, develop cluster of meaning from the statement into the themes. Then from these statements, write a textual description and complete it with a structural description of the context. After that, from the structural and textual description, write a composite description of the essence of the phenomenon called the essential invariant structure. And the third is grounded theory. What is it? Its grounded theory is a research approach proposed by the sociologists Bernie Glaser and Anselm Strauss, who claim that research should depart from the ground. The researcher categorizes empirically collected data in order to build a general theory that fits the data. It defies the traditional positivist approach, which claimed that the researchers must depart from a theory, establish hypotheses that conform to the theory, and then get to the field to confirm the hypothesis in light of the theory. The models developed by using grounded theory are quite distinctive from the traditional ones, in that they revolve a strong foundation on the concrete. In this research, researchers collect rich data on a topic of interest and develop theories inductively. Then, ethnographic research. It's inspired by the practice of cultural and social anthropology, where the researcher integrates for a period of time the community where the study is taking place. Now, this kind of practice is common in information science and technologies research and in human computer interaction. In projects that try to understand the behavior of the people so that better solution can be developed. In this research, you must know that researchers enter themselves in groups or organizations to understand their cultures directly. And it's number 5 is case study research. Case studies are the most common kind of qualitative method used in information, science, and technologies research. They let us study a phenomenon in its real context, especially when the boundaries or line between phenomenon and context can be made clear. One of the major concerns of a case study is to rigorously or seriously clarify its boundaries. A case study incorporates the views of all the actors in the case being studied. Case studies are typically multi-perspectival. They consider the voice, perspective, and interactions of all the relevant parts, including the powerless and voiceless. In this research, the researchers and participants collaboratively link theory to practice to drive the social.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will explain about definition qualitative research. Okay, seen in an historical light, what is today called qualitative are sometimes ethnographic interpretative research are a number of other terms has more or less always existed. At that time, the founders of sociology until Simmel, Weber, that came and before them Marx until were writing and during the era of the Methodist rates, in which the German historical school emphasized scientific methods, we can at least speak of qualitative variance. Perhaps the most extended discussion of what later became known and as qualitative methods in a classic work is Bronislaw Argonas in the Western Pacific. Also, even this study does not explicitly address the meaning of qualitative. Okay, next. The quantitative tradition was also able to present textbooks. The facilities, the use this approach and its methods. The practice of the qualitative tradition by and large remain tacit or was part of the mentoring transferred from the renowned master of their students. Okay, next. Qualitative research is multi-method in focus, involving an interpretive, naturalistic approach to its subject matter. This means that qualitative research study brings in their natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them. Qualitative research involves the studies, use, and collection of a variety empirical materials until case study, personal experience, introspective, life story, interview, observational, historical, interactional and visual text that describe routine and problematic moments and meanings in individuals' lives. Okay, next, most social scientists have a clear idea of research and how it differs from journalism, politics, and other activities, but the question of what is qualitative in qualitative research is either eluded or is issued. Next, okay, these studies have tried to extract what is qualitative by looking at the large number of empirical qualitative studies. Our novel studies strategy complements this in their course by taking another approach and looking at the attempts to codify this practice in the form of a definition, as well as to a minor extent. Tech Bakers is studied as an example of what qualitative researchers actually do and what the characteristic of being qualitative denotes and implies. We claim that qualitative research, if there is such a thing as qualitative research, should be able to codify their practice in condensed yet general way expressed in language. Okay. Uh, Next. I'm sorry. Okay. Uh, and the last I explained in this article we accomplish three texts first. Yeah. The first, we systematically survey the literature for meanings of qualitative research by looking at how researchers have defined it. Drawing upon and sorry, uh, we of no no drawing upon existing knowledge, we find that the different meanings and ideas of qualitative research are not yet coherently. Next, we advance our contribution by offering a definition of qualitative research and illustrates its meaning and use, particularly by expanding on the brief example earlier. We offer a systematic analysis of central themes of what researcher considers to be the core of qualitative. So they serve as the foundations of our contribution. Our categories are overlapping. Their use is primarily to organize the large amounts of definition we have identified and analyzed, and not necessarily to draw a clear distinctions between them. Okay. Finally, we continue the elaboration discussed above on the advance of a clear definition of qualitative research. Okay, thank you. Next, setelah ini akan dilanjutkan oleh teman saya. Terima kasih. Rational, historical, interactional, and visual text that describe routine and problematic moments and meanings in individuals' lives. Okay, next, most social scientists have a clear idea of research and how it differs from journalism, politics, and other activities, but the question of what is qualitative in qualitative research is either eluded or is issued. Next, okay. These studies have tried to extract what is qualitative by looking at the large number of empirical qualitative studies. Our novel strategy complements this in their first by taking another approach and looking at the attempts to codify this practice in the form of a definition, as well as to a minor extent. Tech Bakers is studied as an example of what qualitative researchers actually do and what the characteristic of being qualitative denotes and implies. We claim that qualitative research, if there is such a thing as qualitative research, should be able to codify their practice in condensed yet general way expressed in language. Okay. Uh, Next. I'm sorry. Okay. Uh, and the last I explained in this article we accomplish three texts first. Yeah. The first, we systematically survey the literature for meanings of qualitative research by looking at how researchers have defined it. Drawing upon, I'm sorry, uh, we of no no drawing upon existing knowledge, we find that the different meanings and ideas of qualitative research are not yet coherently. Next, we advance our contribution by offering a definition. We find that the different meanings and ideas of qualitative research are not yet coherently. Next, we advance our contribution by offering a definition of qualitative research and illustrates its meaning and use, particularly by expanding on the brief example introduct. We offer a systematic analysis of central themes of what researcher considers to be the core of qualitative. So they serve as the foundations of our contribution. Our categories are overlapping. Their use is primarily to organize the large amounts of definition we have identified and analyzed, and not necessarily to draw a clear distinctions between them. Okay. Finally, we continue the elaboration discussed above on the advance of a clear definition of qualitative research. Okay, thank you. Next, setelah ini akan dilanjutkan oleh teman saya. Terima kasih.
And the next is strengths and weaknesses of qualitative and qualitative research. Point number 1. Strengths and weaknesses of quantitative research. The strengths can be used to predict or guess. The analysis result can be obtained accurately. Can be used to calculate the relationship between two or more variables. Can simplify complex problems in a model. Research is more systematic and objective. Be able to take advantage of existing theories, specific, clear, and detailed. And the weaknesses of quantitative research are based on assumptions that are not in accordance with the reality. They occur with research in misinformation. The data must be normally distributed and can only be used to analyze data with the same population and sample. If the sample size is a little around 30, it cannot be used for analysis. The data collection tends to come from the highest value. Orientation is only limited to value and number. limited by opportunities to explore respondents and quality of original data collection tools. Researcher involvement is generally limited. And point number 2 is strength and weaknesses of qualitative research. There are all the problems and the topic covered under this research are in detail. This method majorly focuses on small groups, which ultimately do not require more expenses when compared to quantitative research. The data is collected from a small group, which bounds it to be universal for a large population. Have a theoretical basis that fits the fact. Research is more subjective, very effective to use in seeking responses and view because they meet in person. There is a special understanding in analyzing. And the weaknesses of qualitative research are as the data is collected for a small group, due to which assumption cannot be made beyond a small group of people. As the data is in big quantity, analysis and interpretation of the data takes much time. The responses of the subject might be affected as the researchers are bound to be present during the process of data gathering. Researchers are largely responsible for the information conveyed by informants. The difference between fact and policy is less clear. Small study size, not effective if you want to research as a whole or on a large scale. I think it's enough for the explanation. If something is not clear, you can ask a question. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.